This video is all about Motul's racing brake fluid, and let's see how it performs against Liqui-Moly. I have purchased this brake fluid from Amazon, and this is a 500 ml bottle, and I'll leave the link for purchasing this in the description below. This is a Factorline .4 brake fluid, and looking at the specs, this brake fluid has higher dry boiling point as well as wet boiling point, and it is even closer to .5.1. Now in comparison to Liqui-Moly, this is priced at a higher end, and so the specs too. However, is it actually worth to spend lot of money on Factorline brake fluids? Even I'm not sure. This will be an initial video on how to replace your brake fluid with Factorline 1, and if you people want a dedicated video on comparison between Liqui-Moly and Factorline brake fluid from Motul, comment down below. Now let's get replacing the brake fluid. After draping the master cylinder cap, remove the two bolts holding the cap in a crisscross pattern. Carefully lift the cap out of the motorcycle, followed by the plastic cap, and as you can see, you have lot of moisture here which we need to clean. Now take out the rubber cap and make sure that you don't spill any brake fluid on your motorcycle painted parts. If you manage to do so, clean the surface immediately with some soapy water. Now using a syringe, take out all the old brake fluid out of the motorcycle. In this case, I have used Liqui-Moly brake fluid and still it is in a good shape. However, we cannot reuse this as brake fluids must be used always from a sealed container. Why do you ask? Because it always draws water from atmosphere. After emptying entire master cylinder, make sure that you don't press the lever. If you do so, it can introduce air bubbles into the system and it will be a mess to clear it out. Now let's start filling the racing brake fluid. Opening the cap which is sealed, you can see the seal here which is intact. As mentioned before, always use a brake fluid from a sealed container. Now let's fill the brake fluid all the way up and give it a nice pump as shown. Now in order to collect the old brake fluid, I have used a plastic container with a hole on the cap and pass the silicone tube as shown. Now let's remove the nipple cap as shown. You can also remove it completely if you need some working space. Now I'm going to insert a 8mm ring spanner as shown. Now next, insert the silicone tube onto the bleeder bolt as shown. Once this is done, you are ready to bleed the brakes. It's just a matter of pumping the lever couple of times and holding it in place, followed by crack opening the bleeder bolt. The brake fluid will spill out and then you can close the bleeder bolt. Repeat the entire process until you pass the old brake fluid out and you are in with the fresh brake fluid in the system. Keep an eye on the master cylinder and don't let the brake fluid always dry out and introduce the air bubble. Top up the brake fluid whenever is necessary and continue the process. Once everything is done, one snug fit for the bleeder bolt is more than enough, and carefully make sure that you remove the silicone hose without spilling any brake fluid onto the calipers. Clean the area with a microfiber cloth and insert back the dust cap as shown. With this, the caliper part is completed. Now onto the master cylinder. Top up the brake fluid completely, and if you accidentally spilled excess, you can always take out using a syringe. Pump the lever couple of times until you feel resistance and brake lever getting hard. Off camera, I have already cleaned the rubber cap with the help of a microfiber cloth and insert this onto the master cylinder. Again, I have cleaned the plastic cap too, and you can see it's not filled with any moisture anymore. Install it on top of the rubber cap. Now install the final master cylinder cap back onto the assembly and make sure the rag is not in between. Tighten the two screws in a crisscross pattern, making sure that you don't over tighten it. A snug fit is more than enough. With this, the front brake bleeding is completed. Now let's move on to the rear one. The process is very similar. Remove the two screws holding the fluid container as shown. Don't forget to keep a rag to avoid any spillage onto the motorcycle paint. Take out the entire cap assembly as shown and don't forget to clean it before you install it back onto the motorcycle. Take out all the old brake fluid using a syringe and fill in with the fresh brake fluid. Now instead of a lever for rear brakes, it will be pressing the brake pedal as shown. Now onto the rear caliper, remove the dust cap, clean the bleeder bolt if it's dirty, insert the ring spanner and followed by the hose which is connected to a container which can collect fluid. Now repeat the entire same process what has been explained before to remove all the old brake fluid out and replace it with a fresh one. Remove the hose carefully, making sure that you don't spill any brake fluid onto the caliper. Clean the area with a microfiber cloth and insert the dust cap back onto the blader bolt. Top up the brake fluid to the max line, which is highlighted onto the reservoir container, and clean the area outwards, making sure that it is free from all the old brake fluid and debris. Install all the caps which is cleaned onto the container and tighten the 2 screws in a crisscross pattern. With this, you have successfully replaced all the old brake fluid with factory line Motul Racing 1. And how is the initial impression? To be honest, I feel it is similar in terms of how Licky Moly performs. However, for extended use, let me check out and keep you posted on the same. Now, as I mentioned before, if you want a dedicated video on comparison between Motul's racing fluid with Licky Moly 1, comment down below. And if you people like this content, do consider subscribing to Archeonics and follow me on Instagram for more such interesting content.